live. All right. I'd like to welcome everybody to the December 12th Idaho Springs work session. And I want to thank Carmen for this great feast. And Jonathan, thanks for going down to Smoking Jars and getting some of the sides. Unfortunately, Carmen is really under the weather. She's not even able to join us for Zoom tonight. So we wish her a speedy recovery. Only two things on the work session tonight. And the first one is the police dispatch letter of intent. And it is formally notifying the county of the minimum notification we have to give the county is 1 year. That we may leave the dispatch or the county's dispatch. And I know that we've discussed it. It's a massive difference in budget. And it's a very hard decision. I imagine this is probably going to be a split decision. And I just wanted to discuss it here at the work session and see how folks feel about it. I personally feel that with the county facing a $2.3 million budget shortfall for 1 year, my belief is the county is I don't think it's really going to have much of a choice but to go to JetCom, if not, in the next year or two soon after. It's just difficult for smaller dispatches to work, and certainly we have no problems with the sheriff's department, and certainly the dispatch has been working fine. There's just a massive difference in budget. For us, it's a couple $100,000, maybe as high as $380,000 within 2 years. And for the county has sets aside about $1,350,000, and that's why I'm saying if they can do it for about 4-ish, there's probably a substantial savings there for the county as well. So, anyways, I want to throw it out there. How does everybody feel about it?
So they're going to put out a RFP or something to investigate going with Blackhawk and Copeland County.
You mean the county, John?
Yeah, the county.
Yeah, the county for 2023, they're going to pay for a study on how their dispatch is working. And I said it when the sheriff was here. I don't think for a minute that they're fat on their budget or people. I just think that there's massive savings with economies of scale. And I only bring it up because I can't help but believe that that's what the consultants will come back with something similar.
But that changes everything, cost-wise. We join them if we decide to. Yeah.
John, you're right. It's just that we're in a bind where we have to give them a minimum of 1 year notice, even if we don't.
Right.
It just gives us the option.
That's a good question, though.
Yeah, my question is, when do we have to sign up with the other company if we're going to go with them?
Well, I know we asked them on the visit and they were thinking like 4 months for some type of a transition. So, Chief,
in my memo, I put June 1st.
Okay.
It's really a hard deadline.
Yeah.
They would like 6 months.
Yep.
Chief and probably assistant chief, for the, yeah. What's the delay in response time from the initial call going to, and then down to JetCom, then get dispatched back? Like, is there gonna be more of, are we talking like an average of, is it gonna add 10 minutes to a call or something?
From the way I understand it, the city would budget to pay the $70,000 to $80,000 upfront be also to integrate the system so that when someone calls 911, their system automatically, as they're typing information in, it's automatically in real time being seen by the dispatch center in Clear Creek County. So that's the way it was explained to me. That's the way, like if you go to the Denver metro area, these dispatch centers are all doing something similar, and that they're connecting their systems so that when they have a major incident, because oftentimes they have like a line that's a street between Wheat Ridge and another end. Yes.
Yeah.
And so when you have those things, you need those dispatch systems to be able to basically, the CAD systems to be able to be integrated with each other so they can make sure that they know what each other is doing, and they're oftentimes sending resources to those places that are like right along the borders.
Sure.
Right.
Sure.
So that's the way I understand how that would work as far as delays. We really need to have that established, that system, so that there isn't a delay. If that's not established, there's the potential there could be delays as far as transferring calls.
Yeah, that's what I was doing.
And the way I understand it is also, they don't just push transfer and just like disconnect. They're calling and they're having the person on the phone and they connect with the other center before they hang up.
So they just kind of take that call over into, but they're probably reading CAD notes anyway,
Correct.
knowing that they're gonna probably get the call or
Right.
whatever.
Right.
Gotcha.
And it helps with those resources. So if there's a crash, is a good example.
Yeah.
If you have an injury crash, it's a good example because you're sending police resources, but obviously you need to send fire and EMS resources.
Yeah.
So that's where that integration is really critical, because they would just be sending us JeffCom, but then Clear Creek would be sending
They're
ambulance
EMS and fire.
Right.
Right.
So that's why those systems need to be integrated.
Gotcha. That's a really good, yeah, that was a really good example, for sure.
Is there any way to kind of, and I'm sure you've had conversations with the sheriff, like, why aren't we all doing this together? This seems very disjointed to me, unfortunately. And I think, I mean, I'm concerned, even if it's just a 4-second delay. It could be, I mean, I don't want to say this sounds doomsday, like, but it could be life or death,
These are the concerns that happen when there's any change like this.
right?
Certainly I know that the JeffCom people had those concerns from smaller communities that made these hard decisions 2 years ago. Yes, I have had conversations with the sheriff about, it would be really nice if we all together made this decision together. But I think as you heard him here, he said that that's not when he came and spoke.
Oh, no.
If you remember correctly, he said he's not going to do that. And he does not want to.
Because he's got his own. Yeah.
Is it, well, I don't want to go there, but I really am, I mean, this money is it's a huge amount of money. And one of my concerns that I've been talking about is, and not to throw 3 people under the bus, so I won't mention their names, but they are the next level up from a council in our county. And it seems like the big call system, the big call outflow from Idaho Springs is an I-70 issue, not necessarily an Idaho Springs or Empire or Georgetown issue. And I think it would be really amazing if somebody could be going to the, to the state government and saying, how do we help these small municipalities with small police forces pay for this dispatch that is a huge, it's really a statewide issue. It's not just an Idaho Springs issue. And it seems like we're missing an opportunity to like really put it out there and go, we need help. We need help on this avenue. This is a major, artery of the United States and we're paying for it. No?
This is true. When you look at the actual call numbers, this is what we dispel some myths really in this conversation. About 38% of the actual call load for anybody in the county is actually directly on I-70.
That's still, think that's a lot?
No, it's really not. I mean, when you look at that, so that means 38% of his calls for service have something to do with I-70. So 62% of the calls for service involve like me calling for an officer because of whatever my issue might be, right?
But you don't think 38% out of
Well, I think
100%
it's an
is a
issue,
lot?
but I don't think it's an issue we're gonna solve with this conversation.
Well, I know, but my point is that
And
I
that-
don't think it's gonna be solved
no,
by
and
changing.
I do agree with you that we need to push, whether it's commissioners or state or higher than that to find a solution to offset costs for the community from the I-70 corridor.
And-
I would argue that 100% when the numbers show that.
And-
But from a
and-
dispatch perspective, from the conversations that we're having here in regards to calls for service and delays for service, it's really a small, it's kind of it doesn't really make that much of a difference.
In
what we're talking
delays.
about. The delays we're worried about is the geofencing works. Let me start. I'm not the biggest fan about going to Jeff. I'm not going to pretend I am, but I have done a lot of research. I do talk to my peers. The geofencing works with other municipalities and other people that run the Jeff. There are always going to be some quirkiness. We still see there's an address in Jefferson County on Soda Creek that we get called to occasionally, which is essentially with the highway system. So I can pull those out, but it's not an every month thing. It's probably a 3 times a year thing to get some weird crossover. So geofencing does work. The interface with CAD, which is an additional cost that the chief brings up, which is legit. If this is something that the city decides to do, it needs to be an all-in thing. Otherwise, it needs to be into CAD integration and all that stuff. Otherwise, it puts them at a deficit. And that's not fair to anybody. And that's definitely not fair to our neighbors. Like, well, we would have spent $76,000 to get a CAD interface, but we chose not to. So we're sorry you had a 4-minute delay, which is a lot, even if we run dispatch numbers. 4 minutes is pretty high. So I think it's more of the conversation. Today's conversation isn't as much that we're going to pull out a dispatch tomorrow afternoon at 2 o'clock. It's making sure the city, making sure that that's a viable option between now and June, and that's the best decision for the.
Right, and I get that, Jeremy, and I
That's what makes
appreciate,
it so hard,
your information, I really do. And obviously, we're not gonna solve the bigger problem, but I think that is something that needs to be on our radar. We need to start putting pressure on, since we don't have anybody advocating for us, we need to do it. That being said, my one last question is, what is the savings to the IS Police Department if we go to JeffCom?
So,
Including everything that you have to spend to have the best possible dispatch that we can.
so the initial savings would be, so we're moving up towards about $380,000 in 2024. We would have the initial, if we went high estimate, we would have, our estimate is $90,000 to $100,000 annually. Plus we would have the additional $80,000 for
$80,000 on the
the
output.
integration. So $180,000 is what it would cost initially. And then every year thereafter, about $100,000.
So a couple
So it'd be
significant savings.
correct. It'd be it could be up to $280,000
Mhm.
a year saving.
Wow.
It's like $123,000 savings
It's quite a bit.
with the cost.
I mean, and I'm sure there's a lot of things that we need, that we could purchase with that money. On the police force.
Scott, what do you think?
It's a hard decision to make. You know, I don't know what statistics are, if we're talking about average 10-second delay for these calls versus JeffCon versus our current dispatcher. You know, I don't work the business, so I don't know what that means in statistics, but I don't think 10 seconds is I know it's critical, you know, but the time of response, but 10 seconds to me just doesn't seem like the statistics would tell you you're gonna lose lives for the most part, but 4-minute delays, if we're talking 4-minute delays, that could mean something.
Tying it in with the system, the $80,000 system. A lot of that goes away. The opportunity.
That's the way it's explained. That it's integrated so that the information that's being typed in one is being seen by the other dispatch center. And they can connect them if they have specific questions about medical, like dispatchers are trained to teach people or tell people how to do CPR. as an example. So So they would have to just, that has to be very quick integration of systems. And that's the way that I understand that these work, that these CAD integrations work. That's why it costs $80,000 to integrate it, to make sure that it's all working correctly. Right.
We have that one-time charge of 80,000, is that chance that technology is gonna change where we're gonna have a similar thing happen down the road? If something happens with technology as it is today versus something that happens in the future, or?
It's hard to predict. I'd say that's possible. There could be unexpected costs, but typically, you know, if we have to do like a software upgrade or doing something where we're trying to upgrade something, sometimes that makes these systems have issues. So you have to make sure that you've tested it and that it's, you know, these systems aren't impacted by those things, but there could be unforeseen costs.
There could be some, technology costs going forward after the first year too.
Or it might be a deal where you contract like Xfinity or something. Oh, you know, upgrades are included for 3 or whatever you maybe. I mean, that's plausible, yeah.
Right. And see, one of the things, I don't want to overstep, but, you know, in talking with the county and talking with the sheriff, you know, that's one of my other motivations. Not that I want us to leave, because they are great, they're fantastic. But the cost savings is important. But if what Kate said, if we sort of all went together, we wouldn't have to pay this $80,000 integration fee, because we would all be on
One thing,
one thing.
you would need that connectivity is
Right.
what you're talking about, right?
Right. So,
So we're gonna spend $80,000 and they still might leave in 2 years.
correct. But we would still save the city
Sure,
money.
I get it.
It would cost.
Now versus later.
They pay the same, right? So City of Idaho Springs pays $80,000 to integrate the system with DevCom, which is necessary because they run E-Force anyways. The integration is gonna have to happen for records, transfer and stuff anyways. County runs E-Force also, so if the county were to go to DevCom,
They gotta pay it too.
Georgetown, PD, Empire.
Oh, they would
they're
all pay
gonna
separately?
They're all gonna pay
Gotcha.
whatever that cost is for their agency to make E-Force interface with the dispatch system.
Gotcha.
So what that total cost is, I don't know. I know it goes up by agency size. So essentially, the Idaho Springs would have already paid that integration of these other agencies or subsequently having to pay for it as they do the same transfer. Essentially, what we're talking about here.
Because DevCom does not run Force Drive.
No, they do not. They run a different software package. There's an interface with E-Force. Actually, that's every software. We paid it for the fire authority, same way to integrate with. For us to integrate with E-Force, we had to pay that. Technology.
Gotcha.
So if we pull out, county dispatch could collapse. Get without funds. And then it's being seen. Yeah, I know, nobody really knows. But without our contribution, you know, we just go away.
The city has some influence in this process.
Of
I
course,
think
yeah.
the city has influence in this process.
Agreed.
And I think it's, the county has already gone on record saying they are gonna do the study. The timing is not quite clear, but I think it's a high priority and they're planning to start that in 23. So I think it may prompt them to move it along, do the study, maybe look at Gilpin. That's another option that I've heard, Gilpin. And I think that could be a good thing. That it could say, you know, sometimes you need some pressure to raise these issues up and make sure they're addressed in a timely fashion. And this would come back to council around May or June for a final decision whether to go or not go. So that would be the real time that we need to know go or no go for the budgeting and so we know how to plan for the next year. So this is just to keep our options open. And I think also to send a message. This needs to be addressed.
Any other municipalities concerning this, you know?
Well, I know about these, one was, one Empire was considered the same thing, because they're in the same position.
Yeah,
From a budget perspective, they don't have extra money in any fashion in the budget, right? So they're looking, I think everybody's gonna look at it eventually. I haven't talked to them in Georgetown, but I had to Empire looked at what the viability of this, of a transfer is going to be for their budget. I think we're all in the same general position, where you start looking at, if your first year savings, you say $123,000, that's your first year, in your subsequent years are in the $200,000 range. That's a lot of money for anybody's budget, especially when you look at long-term, what that looks.
but that's not what Empire's paying. I mean, they're
No,
paying,
Empire is the smallest, one of the
Significantly,
smallest users in
yeah.
the county. And they're struggling, so just to give
of
you
course.
scale wise, they're like 5 or 6%, I think, but of dispatch.
Yeah.
But it's not very much.
No,
And they're looking at ways to save.
Right.
it would definitely be significant in their time. Not that it wouldn't be here as well.
Could we get a breakdown from the sheriff's office, from the county, and how they arrived at 300,000, or whether they're charging us? And did they say, I think you want to ask the question, Kate, how much it's gonna go up every year, and said, what, 10 or 15%, and thought maybe at least.
With staying with the county, that is, yeah, there's gonna be,
I mean, that seems, so, I know the efficiencies of a larger operation, but what they're charging seems, I don't know if I buy that number unless somebody's audited it and analyzed it, said it's real. I'm sure someone had, that seems like a large number.
So in about a couple more years, that projection was about almost 380,000, 379 and change. Because currently there's administrative fee that they're not passing on. They elected to not pass it on, for a couple more years. We're 29% of their business approximately. So they say there's a corresponding increase with that administrative fee being 29% is ours. So that's why the escalation goes up to the 379 and change. And I'm sorry, I think it's in 2025. But at that point, we're literally over $1,000 a day in dispatch. Is there, I don't want to rush this in any way, but is there any more thoughts on this before we move to CERSA training?
Well, like Art was saying, they audit this, I mean, I'm sure they got some kind of breakdown for that administrative charge.
Yeah. I know, Scott will give an example, like a percentage of the county attorney's time, and there are several other that they have not included to date. So actually, we're getting a much lighter bill than would otherwise be the case.
The administrative charges are called for in the IGA, they just haven't been assessed.
Right.
So it is within their prerogative to do that as long as it's part of that IGA. Another thing to remember is the IGA expires in another year. So they'll have to enter into a new IGA. And that's an unknown too. We don't know what those additional costs will be related to a new IGA. This was the first time that we had to enter into an IGA. It's a 7-year IGA. Previously, the city did not have to pay anything extra for dispatch. It was included as part of the taxes that are paid to the county. But with their fiscal constraints, they had the city and all entities that they serve enter into an IGA to start paying into what they say are their actual costs, cover the costs on a proportionate basis.
And to be a little bit blunt on the subject, if we're not doing anything this year, I think the subject gets looked at again by the county and the city again next year.
Yeah.
I think it's just that it's not gonna go away. At that kind of expense, when you can save taxpayers that kind of money, And we're questioning, can the service be as good?
Any more discussion? All right, we have some CIRSA training, our insurance folks. And Jonathan, are you
I'm
you
gonna,
got that loaded up to?
yeah, I'm gonna pop it up on the screen.
Okay, thank you.
1 second.
Yes.
We do have some cake over there that Diane made, if anybody still hungry.
Oh, yeah, it's good.
Dessert?
Are you guys ready for the video to start?
Sure.
Here we go.
How long is the job? About 17 minutes?
Yeah, it's not too bad. Hold on, I need to fix it. I apologize.
John says there may be some ads too.
Possibly. Just break it up a little bit.
07.
Oh, hello, Dan. Congratulations on being elected as a council member.
Thanks, Mayor. I'm real excited about attending my first meeting and being sworn in, although I'm a little nervous.
Nervous? About what? You were elected by a landslide.
Well, there are several things I'd like to accomplish, but I'll be the first to admit I have a lot to learn. I don't want to end up like former Councilman Smith. I want to have a successful term, but I don't want to end up being sued.
Hey, Dan, for you joining us tonight.
Hey, Bill.
Hi, I'm Margaret Taylor. I've been a council member here with the city of Cottonwood for 10 years and mayor for the last 2. During my time with the city, we have made a lot of progress, but also a few mistakes. Certain members of the council have created messy liability situations that have cost the city a great deal of money, hurt our public image, and stalled important projects. And in some situations, elected officials have paid personal liability claims out of their own pockets. The purpose of this video and accompanying handbook is to help you avoid the mistakes that can lead to liability and identify best practices that will allow you to be successful as an elected or appointed official. CIRSA presents In the Scope of Your Authority, Preventing Public Officials' Liability.
That's a lot of good information. Well, thanks, Bill. I'll see you tonight. All right. Oh, Mayor, do you have a few minutes to discuss some of those past mistakes?
Sure, Dan, come on in.
Thanks.
Have a seat.
Thank you.
You referred to Councilmember Patrick Smith. He promised during his campaign he would never allow Megamart to build a store in Cottonwood, and he was pretty vocal about it.
I've had similar opinions about giant retailers, although I haven't been as vocal as Mr. Smith. Where'd he go wrong?
Well, I don't think he ever accepted the fact that as an individual council member, he really didn't have the authority to act on his own. That's why Smith was never able to get anything done. He was pretty vocal about the few issues he was interested in, but rarely worked to build consensus within the council. Dan, pretty much everything we do requires collaboration within the framework of our council. Elected officials can't get anything done as individuals.
I see your point.
So the first lesson is to think and act in terms of we, not I. Apart from a few duties vested in the mayor, the laws that govern our city don't give any powers to individual council members. We've got a diverse council with a lot of different perspectives, and we can only accomplish our goals by working together. Now that you've been elected, your role changes dramatically. You're no longer an outsider promoting your own agenda. You now have to work with your fellow council members to accomplish the city's goals as a collective body.
Let me ask you more about Councilmember Smith. The Megamart deal, it was approved by the council, although by a close vote. What problems did Smith cause?
Remember all of his anti-Megamart statements? When it came time for us to actually hear and act on Megamart's land use application, he should have recused himself.
So he shouldn't have voted.
That's right. He shouldn't have participated in the hearing or voted. Smith had made it well known that he was aligned with the Megamart opponents. When we're acting in a quasi-judicial capacity, such as when deciding on a land use application or liquor license, we must be fair and impartial. We can't do that if we've already made up our minds before the hearing. Councilmember Smith had made it clear that he opposed the Megamart application. He was not acting as a fair and impartial decision maker. Fortunately, the Megamart application was approved by a small margin. Otherwise, the city could have been accused of a due process violation.
Due process?
Yes, the U.S. Constitution guarantees the right to a fair hearing as part of an applicant's due process rights.
During my campaign, I talked with a lot of my neighbors who are also anti-growth. I expressed to them my concerns about protecting our small businesses from giant retailers. Will that prevent me from voting on similar issues?
Well, the question is, if one of those big retailers comes before the council with a land use application, can you be fair? Can you make your decision based only on the evidence you hear and the requirements of our land use code? And can you set aside your previous discussions with your neighbors?
I can't ignore my neighbors. They elected me to represent them, not ignore them.
I'm not saying ignore your neighbors, but when an application is pending, you should not have discussions with anyone outside of the hearing. Our city attorney calls these discussions ex parte contacts. Your decision in a quasi-judicial matter must be based on the evidence presented. So when your neighbors want to speak with you about a pending application, explain to them it's inappropriate for you to talk about the issue outside the hearing. Suggest that they come to the hearing so their concerns can be heard.
Well, last year I called Councilman Miller and asked him to vote no on the pit bull ordinance. Did we engage in an improper ex parte contact?
No, that was a different situation. The council's consideration of a pit bull ordinance was a legislative matter. They were not dealing with the rights of a specific applicant under an existing law. The council was considering a new citywide law, so they were acting as legislators. Lobbying and other ex parte contacts are acceptable in the legislative context. But when you're in a quasi-judicial role, you've got to think and act more like a judge and refrain from engaging in or allowing ex parte contacts.
It makes sense when you put it that way. It's important not to base my vote on my biases or prejudice and only consider the evidence presented at the hearing like a judge.
Exactly. The other thing to keep in mind is to make sure you have no conflicts of interest when you're voting. If you were appearing before a judge and you learned he had financial or other conflicts of interest, you'd expect him to recuse himself, wouldn't you?
Well, sure.
Well, people who appear before us in a quasi-judicial matter expect the same. To be unbiased decision makers, we must be free from conflicts of interest. If we do have a conflict, we need to declare it, recuse ourselves, and not participate in the hearing or decision.
I think I understand. I think I recall reading in the paper about another incident involving Patrick Smith.
Oh, that was probably the lawsuit involving our library expansion. The council had selected a very qualified contractor to manage the project. Smith was always hanging around the construction site, thinking it was his job to micromanage the project. Needless to say, Smith ended up in a verbal confrontation with the contractor. Things got personal, and Smith started talking to other council members about terminating the guy's contract. He also spread some vicious personal rumors around town about the contractor.
That wasn't very smart. Did he get the contractor fired?
No, but the contractor sued Smith personally for defamation. Our insurance company declined to defend Smith because it was alleged he was acting outside the scope of his authorized duties and acting in a willful and wanton manner.
So that's why Smith had to pay for his own legal defense?
Yes, he was not acting within the scope of his authority as a council member when he started those vicious rumors.
I heard he had to take out a second mortgage to pay his lawyers and a large settlement.
Smith learned his lesson the hard way. Being outside the scope of one's authority or acting in a willful and wanton manner will result in a loss of liability protections and insurance coverages. That's good, thank you. Now, Patrick Smith isn't the only elected official who's gotten himself in some trouble. Our former mayor, Joe Appleby, put himself in the middle of a personnel issue.
I think I remember this case. Tammy Williams was the director of Public Works, right? Didn't she try to stop sexual harassment in the street division?
What do you think about wearing something like that to work?
You guys are jerks, idiots.
Guys, I've told you about this before. You can't keep doing this. Bert, I need to see you in my office.
In trying to clean up the division, she fired the street supervisor, Bert Simpson. Mayor Appleby, who was drinking buddies with Simpson, was furious and made it his mission to get Tammy fired, and he succeeded.
You know, your job can't be replaced.
She brought a lawsuit claiming the mayor retaliated against her for trying to eliminate the harassment. The jury awarded her $150,000 in punitive damages that Appleby had to pay out of his own pocket.
Wow. What were the key lessons in this case?
First, don't act on the basis of personal motives. It was obvious Mayor Appleby wanted to fire Tammy Williams to get revenge for his friend Bert, and that was not in the scope of his authority. Second, we need to delegate personnel issues to the city administration. The council shouldn't be dealing with individual employees other than those who report directly to the council, like our city administrator. We should be focusing on the major legislative and quasi-judicial issues and leave administrative matters to staff. And third, never retaliate against someone for exercising their legal rights. Not only is retaliation against the law, but these claims are among the most difficult and costly to defend. We also had another fallout from the Appleby litigation. The press learned during the trial that Appleby was telling a lot of inappropriate jokes, and he was emailing them to the entire council. So the media demanded to see all of the council's emails over several years. Our city sure looked bad after the press got a hold of those.
Whoa, I didn't realize emails were considered public records.
Sure. While there are narrow grounds for not releasing them under some circumstances, the basic rule is that emails may be public documents that anyone can review. If you don't want something splashed on the front page of the newspaper, we need to keep it out of our emails.
At least we're not the only city making these mistakes. Remember the scandal involving Councilman Arnold over in Clarksville after he got stopped for speeding?
Yes, he was caught on television yelling at the police officer for stopping him. I cringed when he shouted at the officer, "Don't you know who I am?" Talk about an abuse of power.
To the chief all the time.
That brings me to perhaps the most important lesson. As elected and appointed officials, we must use our powers wisely and with civility. To misuse our position is absolutely improper and is not within the scope of our authority. We shouldn't try to put ourselves above the law or try to get some sort of special privilege because of our position.
Explain what you mean by acting with civility.
Well, as elected officials, we're perceived as holding the most powerful positions in the city. Because of that perception, our words carry a lot of weight. A harsh or ill-considered comment from any of us, especially if made public, can be extremely harmful to our employees' morale, as well as our public image. I once heard Appleby refer to our female employees as the staff hotties. It was embarrassing. Also, we should not participate in or encourage staff bashing in public meetings. We need to keep the focus on issues, not personalities. And then during Tammy's lawsuit, some of the jokes the mayor told during executive sessions were made public. We took another bashing in the press for those. Negative behavior like that can affect our entire organization. If we set a bad example at the top, we can't be surprised when it filters through the entire workforce. I'm so glad we've moved on from those days.
Well, this is eye-opening and a little frightening. Do we have any protections from liability?
Yes. Fortunately, we live in a state where our liability protections are strong. For one thing, we have an excellent Governmental Immunity Act. Our Public Officials Liability Handbook has a good summary of our liability protections. But to retain these protections, we must stay within the scope of our authority and not act in a willful and wanton manner.
You've used those terms before. What would be considered willful and wanton?
Well, the actual legal definition is found in the handbook, but basically, it's the kind of conduct that got Appleby in trouble. When he got Tammy fired, he was more than reckless in disregarding her legal rights, purposely trying to damage her career.
Do we have any other protections?
Sure, we have excellent personal immunities recognized by our courts when acting on legislative and quasi-judicial matters. But we do not have strong immunities when dealing with administrative problems. That's another reason why we need to stay out of administrative issues.
Got it. Let the city manager do his job.
And finally, we've got good insurance coverage through CIRSA, our public entity self-insurance pool. But those coverages only apply when we act within the scope of our authorized responsibilities, and they don't apply to punitive damages, as Mayor Appleby learned.
I see how these are all interrelated. Best practices, liability protections, and insurance coverages. And each area calls for us to meet certain standards of conduct. As long as we meet those standards of conduct, we should be okay.
I think you got it, Dan.
Thanks, Mayor. I really appreciate you taking the time to share your knowledge so I don't have to learn the hard way. Thanks for your insights.
You're very welcome. And one of the other best practices we've put into place is liability training. We hold a session every year for our council members, boards, and commissions. We have a session scheduled next month.
Great. I'll be there.
Great.
Hey, thanks again, Mayor.
Absolutely. Dan's a sharp guy. I think he'll make an excellent council member, as long as he follows these best practices. Think and act in terms of we, not I. When acting in a quasi-judicial capacity, be fair and impartial. Don't make up your mind before the hearing. Base your decision on the evidence you hear at the hearing and the applicable law. Don't participate in the hearing or the decision if you have a conflict of interest. And don't engage in ex parte contacts. Refrain from personal or retaliatory actions. Focus on key legislative and quasi-judicial issues and leave administrative matters to the staff. And maximize your liability protections by staying within the scope of your authority and avoiding willful and wanton conduct. I hope this video has helped you identify how to stay within the scope of your authority as an elected or appointed official, maximize your liability protections, and enhance your effectiveness as a civic leader. Good luck.
All right, well, I guess we'll take about 15 minutes before the regular session. Diane, that was some good cake, thank you.
Yes, it
You're
was.
welcome.
Yeah.
You're most welcome.
It's supposed to be eggnog, but it doesn't have too much of an eggnog.
Oh,
That's
nice.
nice in it though, it's tasty.
I know you, Mayor, I know you attended the update that they spoke about, the training just a week or two ago. Is there anything else you wanted to add from that training for the group here?
Well, I think they covered it pretty well with the ex parte communications. You know, sometimes it's hard to let staff do their job and maybe not intervene in areas where we shouldn't. I think it's not a problem with this council. But I don't think Jeremy has heard this, but I know other council members have heard it. Sometimes, and these are pretty large cities I'm talking about. I don't want to divulge the names, but trust me, every one of us have been in these cities and we've had entertainment, we've had meals in these large cities. And there are vicious haggle sessions that go on till midnight and 1 o'clock in the morning. Yeah, you might think that, well, maybe a bigger city, I'm just throwing out a name like Westminster, you know, might behave a little better or something. And no, you know, I think many cities aspire to be where we're at. You know, Robert's Rules of Order, it says something at the beginning, like generally to follow. And it was intended for cities to have a little bit of flexibility. Like, we're not so rigid where a council person would have to ask the mayor for permission to speak. They actually, unfortunately, do have things like that, only because some of these council people are just so diametrically opposed that they talk over each other and try to shout each other down. And so seemingly silly rules like that are implemented just to keep the conversation going, and where folks aren't trying to stomp out others by shouting louder. So anyways, I am just really thankful to have the group that we have. I think that the disagreements are always very civil, and no one's trying to shout someone else down. And I just am very, very thankful to serve with you. And I can't think of, I think that the training is pretty good, especially for like first year council members. But we really don't have a lot of people stepping over the line. And, you know, if you have any questions regarding that, I would feel real comfortable if I were you going to Carmen, or if it's something that maybe isn't even that formal, maybe just ask Andy about.
Any other questions? Training? Mostly a review, I'm sure.
You know, I just want to say that probably the hardest thing, there might be something, and I'll just say it's development XYZ. And some of the harder things are just keeping your thoughts to yourself regarding development XYZ. You know, you don't want to say things to folks publicly like, I'm against XYZ. I don't think that they should even have a hearing, right? You know, because you're technically not supposed to have your mind made up until all the evidence is presented. So I think that's one thing in the video, although it wasn't Academy Award acting, but I'm glad they covered that, because that's probably something that's pretty common with most councils.
Was it Bob Pomeroy in there?
I think it was.
Is he still with Source?
No, he's retired. There are a few source employees in that movie. Recognize.
They weren't actors? Oh.
Well, in their own mind.
They thought that they were not paid actors.
All right,
They're big
so,
you though. Right. They're trying. Know that, aren't they?
if everybody wants to take about 10, we'll reconvene here at 7 and maybe have a seconds on Diane's cake.
You guys think we can count that
as a Christmas movie?
No.
No, the
Oh, no. What?
All right, well, Jeff.
Hi, I'd like to welcome everybody to the December 12th Idaho Springs regular council session. Called to order at 7 p.m. Roll call, please.
Mayor Chuck Harmon.
Here.
Kate Collier. Here. Jeremy Jones.
Here.
Art Cacavelli.
Here.
Scott Pennell.
Here.
John Curtis.
Here.
Jim Clark.
Here.
Thank you.
All right, all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please be seated. We have an agenda before us tonight. Do I have a motion?
I'll move to approve the agenda for December 12th, 2022.
And do I have a second? Any discussion? All right, all those in favor, please signify by raising your right hand, saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Yeah. Does anyone tonight feel they have a conflict of interest?
Yeah, I'm not going to participate in the vote on the intergovernmental agreement with Quigley Freiburg.
Okay, so noted, Jeremy, thank you. We have the minutes before us. Do I have a motion?
I move to approve the minutes from November 28th, 2022.
Thank you, Art. Do I have a second?
Second.
Scott, second. Any discussion about the minutes? All right, all those in favor, please raise your right hand and signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We have the bills before us tonight through December the 12th, and do I have a motion?
Move to approve bills to December 12th, 2022.
Thank you, John, and a second?
Second.
And a second, any discussion of the bills? Roll call, please.
Mayor Chuck Harmon.
Yes.
Kate Collier.
Yes.
Jeremy Jones.
Yes.
Art Cacavelli.
Yes.
Scott Pennell.
Yes.
John Curtis.
Yes.
Jim Clark.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any public comment tonight?
No, Mayor, nobody has signed up for public comment.
Okay. Then we'll move on to resolutions, starting with resolution number 26. Do I have a motion?
Move to approve resolution 26, series 2022, resolution approving the 2022 amended and stated intergovernmental agreement concerning Quigley Freiburg.
Thank you, John. Do I have a second?
Second?
And a second, Kate. Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Mayor Chuck Harmon.
Yes.
Kate Collier.
Yes.
Art Cacavelli.
Yes.
Scott Pennell.
Yes.
John Curtis.
Yes.
Jim Clark.
Yes. Okay, we are going to have a public hearing. I'd like to call it at 7:03. And this is for resolution number 27, series 2022, resolution summarizing expenditures and revenue and adopting a budget for the city of Idaho Springs, Colorado for the calendar year of 2023 and appropriating sums of money for said year. Do we have any discussion of the budget? And I should let everybody know that because we had discussed it prior, the $15,000 for project support and the building restoration is in this year's budget.
Well, when will you let Donna know? Officially.
Budget's adopted.
I'm sure she'll be very happy.
Yes.
Any further discussion of the budget? Hearing none, I will call the hearing closed at 7:04 and ask for a vote. Roll call, please.
We didn't get a second.
I'm sorry. Oh,
Or do we, or did we make a motion?
Because we just went into the hearing. Now we make the vote and
The motion.
we make the motion now.
do I
To
have,
approve the budget.
Oh.
do I have a motion to adopt the budget?
I'll move to approve the budget. I'm not, I don't see it, but I'm going to move to approve the budget for the city of Idaho Springs for the calendar year 2023 and the appropriating sums of money for said year.
Thank you, Kate. Do I have a second? And a second? Any further
Need
discussion?
something else?
I think you need to reference the resolution number.
Oh, sorry, I probably do. Yes,
27.
resolution number 27, series 2022, A resolution summarizing expenditures and revenues and adopting a budget for the city of Idaho Springs, Colorado for the calendar year 2023 and appropriating sums of money for said year.
Thank you, Kate. And do we have a second to that, Art?
Yeah.
Oh, thank you, Art. All right. Any further discussion for the vote? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Mayor Chuck Harmon.
Yes.
Kate Collier.
Yes.
Jeremy Jones.
Yes.
Art Cacavelli.
Yes.
Scott Pennell.
Yes.
John Curtis. Jim Clark.
Yes. All right, moving to resolution number 28. Do I have a motion?
I'll move to approve resolution 28 of series 2022, a resolution levying general property taxes for the year of 2022 to help defray the cost of government for the city of Idaho Springs, Colorado for the 2023 budget year.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Art. Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Mayor Chuck Harmon.
Yes.
Kate Collier.
Yes.
Jeremy Jones.
Yes.
Art Cacavelli.
Yes.
Scott Pennell.
Yes.
John Curtis.
Yes.
Jim Clark.
Yes. Okay, we'll move to ordinance second reading, starting with our only one, ordinance number 10. Do I have a motion?
I'll move to approve ordinance number 10, series 2022, an ordinance implementing the 1% sales tax rate increase approved by city electors on November the 8th, 2022, to be dedicated to water and wastewater capital improvements and rate relief.
Thank you, Scott. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
And a second, Jeremy. Thank you. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Mayor Chuck Harmon.
Yes.
Kate Collier.
Yes.
Jeremy Jones.
Yes.
Art Cacavelli.
Yes.
Scott Pennell.
Yes.
John Curtis.
Yes.
Jim Clark.
Yes. Thank you. As noted, our city attorney will not be with us tonight as she's under the weather, but provided us with a fine meal. And Andy, you don't have anything further tonight, correct?
No, I just would like to thank Wonder for her decorating. We talked
Yeah.
about doing decorating for our last meeting and I had no idea it would get to this level. So thank you, Wonder. And also the gnome out front is handmade by Patty.
Very nice.
It was, yeah, good job.
So we're in the spirit.
All right, thank you. Jonathan,
It's
anything further for us tonight?
No, sir.
Okay. And Deputy City Clerk, Wonder, again, thank you. Do you have anything further for us tonight?
I don't, I just wanted to remind council of the holiday party at Tommyknockers on Thursday from 5 to 7.
Yeah, very good. Okay. Jared, do you have anything for us tonight?
I switched sides.
There you go.
No, you have my report, Mayor, with my request.
Thank you very much. All right. And Chief, only one item tonight. And I would like to make the motion that we proceed with giving the county our notice of intent to withdraw from the intergovernmental agreement for the operation, administration, and financial support of the Clear Creek County Communications Center. Do I have a second? And a second. Any discussion?
Just for the record, for the public, is it okay to, can you give an overview of why we're doing this?
Yes, Kate, actually, I would love to take this opportunity to say, I think we have one of the finest sheriffs in Colorado. This is no slight to the sheriff's department. They back us up. We work very closely with them. This is purely financial. And we have been presented with, after the initial startup costs of approximately $100,000 a year total cost for Jeffcom versus about 303,000, and unfortunately growing to about 379,000 just over the next couple of years, staying with our Clear Creek County dispatch. So I believe that there is just dramatic economies of scale where there's savings. And it is not an easy decision, but I feel that this is a very dramatic amount of money. It is encompassing about 35% of our police budget. And we have an opportunity to drop that to single digit. If we don't do something it's going to eclipse $1,000 a day for dispatch. So it is with a heavy heart that I make that motion. But I feel it's a motion that has to be made. And this does comply with giving the county the year's notification that they have requested and we've agreed to. It does give us about 6 months to reach that decision, but this at least gives us that flexibility. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Can we have? Curtis was the second, is that correct? Okay, sorry. Mayor Chuck Harmon,
Yes.
Kate Collier,
Yes.
Jeremy Jones,
Yes.
Art Cacavelli,
Yes.
Scott Pennell,
Yes.
John Curtis,
Yes.
Jim Clark.
Yes.
All right, thank you. We've got
Public Works?
yeah, just sorry, I was just making sure I wasn't skipping over anything. Yes, so we don't have anything from Public Works tonight. Anything from City Clerk?
I'd just like to take this opportunity to wish everybody a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Why, thank you. Thank you very much.
Thanks for the invite tonight.
And yeah, great cake. Thank you.
Always good for cake.
And tonight we have a letter of intent for appointment to HPRC. And it was at the back of my packet.
Welcome, Madison.
Madison, it's good to have you in the audience. And it might be a slightly irregular, but since you're here, we would love to hear from you. And I'd like to know if any members of council have any questions, if you're willing.
Yeah.
Oh, why, thank you.
Yeah, I'm Madison. Nice to meet you all.
Madison, if you would, why don't you come up to
You want me to
the
come up there?
podium, please? Thank you.
Yeah, you're amongst friends. Please don't be nervous.
Just don't look at the screen.
Okay. Yeah, hi, I'm Madison. I live in Idaho Springs. I live up on Ridgeview Trail, so not like in the downtown area, but here. I've lived here for 3 years now. I love the city. I think it's cool. I'm studying political science at the University of Denver, so I feel like being more involved with government would be really cool for me.
Excellent.
Learning some stuff hands-on instead of just in a classroom and from people who are telling me how things work. So that's kind of why I'm interested.
Madison, I have what I feel is a very important question for you. So our HPRC is accredited. And are you willing to go to additional training? And this would be like in a historical context, national historic standards and things like we have for our old downtown. And I just want to make sure that you're willing to do some extra time. The HPRC meetings by themselves aren't very demanding because actually it's not every month, that there's a meeting, but sometimes the training, I think it's very interesting, but I just want to make sure that you're willing to do that.
Yeah, I'm more than happy to do that.
Jared.
And I just want to talk just a little bit about the ordinance, our current code. So the Historic Preservation Review Commission, you do not need to live in the city limits to be on that commission. So I just want everybody to be aware it is one of the few commissions that we have in the city that does allow for that. Currently, it is the code authorizes a 7-member commission with 2 alternates to that 7 members. So it'd be a 5 standing and 2 alternates. So we currently have 5. So this would be filling one of the alternate positions.
Excellent.
Very good. I would like to know, is there any more questions for Madison?
I just want to say thank you for stepping up.
Yes.
For sure, yeah.
Yeah,
Get to see
absolutely.
all the juicy insides of the buildings. Which is my favorite part of it.
Yeah.
Welcome aboard, Madison.
Well, I would like to formalize it and I'd like to make a motion that Madison Wolf join HPRC as our new alternate. And do I have a second? Second, Jeremy, thank you. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Mayor Chuck Harmon.
Yes.
Kate Collier.
Yes.
Jeremy Jones. Art Cacavelli.
Yes.
Scott Pennell.
Yes.
John Curtis. Jim Clark.
Yes. Okay, now,
Sorry, welcome aboard.
officially, yes, good to have you.
The other HPRC members already?
I have not actually, yeah.
It's a good team. I think you'll enjoy
That
it.
is.
I think it's a good team.
Absolutely.
Thank you guys so much.
And Madison, there's a training session opportunity coming up pretty soon here.
Yep,
And
February.
Jared will speak with you about that.
Awesome. Yeah, that would be great.
There's, I know Wonder's going to do the swearing in here in a second. But before I forget, we do have a meeting tomorrow. It is just a virtual meeting. And as an alternate, where you're more than able to attend and participate in the conversation. You just wouldn't be a voting member unless somebody is missing. So then you get bumped up into the normal role.
Okay,
So,
cool. I'll be there.
okay.
I will forward you that link.
Am I allowed to talk to her about that?
Can you raise your right hand? And repeat after me. I, Madison Wolf,
I'm Madison Wolf.
do solemnly declare and affirm
Am I?
solemnly declare and affirm
that I will support and uphold
that I will support and uphold
the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution and laws of the state of
the
Colorado,
Constitution and laws of the state of Colorado,
and the laws and ordinances of the city of Idaho Springs,
and the laws and ordinances of the city of Idaho Springs,
and that I will faithfully perform the duties
and that I will faithfully perform the duties
of Historic Preservation Review Commission Board Member
of Historic Preservation Review Commission Board Member
for the city of Idaho
for the
Springs,
city of Idaho Springs,
upon which I'm about to enter.
on which I am about to enter. Yay. Here's my motion.
All right, well,
Make her sign quick before she changes her mind after all that.
Very nice to meet you.
Seriously, I'd be out of your mind.
well, thank you. Does anyone have anything else before I adjourn tonight?
I do. I'd like to thank the chief for all the positive things that are coming out of the police department with the officers, the new officer, the other officer that responded to the lady and all the other things in the last few weeks. So thank you. And
Yeah.
your force.
Thank you. Thank you. And you know, the chief's very proactive. You couldn't help but notice in his report, very pertinent training that's coming up too.
Yep.
So, yeah, it's really, really good. I'm glad you brought that up. Thank you. Anything further? And as Jimmy noted, we've got like almost a month off. The next work session and regular meeting are not until January the 9th. So everybody have a good holiday. Good to see you. And we'll call it adjourned.